hello, and welcome to the Coaxum Report. I'm super excited today that I'm being joined by one of my sisters from another mister that is an amazing creative type. And so Sherry Hobson. Sherry, how are
Hi.
you?
I'm so grateful to be here with you and
Sherry, I'm
excited.
glad. I'm excited to
Yeah.
have you here with me. So Sherry, just by way of letting you know, so we are on right now. You can catch us on the marketplace at ourtv.network, and I've shared that on my LinkedIn and Facebook pages, so folks can kind of join us and see who I'm talking with today. In addition to that, you can catch us on Roku, Amazon, Fire TV. You can also catch us on Tempo, and we broadcast on Tempo, and we're simultaneously we are being heard on WSTX Bloomberg. So for all of you, I'm super excited to talk to Sherry today about her business. She's going to tell us about Bellini. Tell us all about how you guys started. I'm loving the earrings.
Thank you, thank you, thank you,
Earrings
thank
are
you.
amazing. Oh my God. So tell us a little bit, Sherry, about who you are and just what got you to do all these super amazing things that you're doing right now with your headpieces and accessories. And also, of course, with enterprises as you're expanding into different markets.
You know, as you said, how did you get here? You remember Nemo when Dory all of a sudden she remembered all that time with Nemo and it all just came rushing back. I had that moment. And I'm a sensitive being, so it brought tears to my eyes. But my mother was a home economics teacher. She was also a designer, and she was in the industry at the time where they didn't pay designers or little black designers. And so she was a black lady in the back room and gave up working on 7th Avenue so that she could support her two daughters. Fast forward, I've been sewing since I was like 8 years old, since I could fit my, not fit, but my foot could reach. Any of you out there that know what a Singer factory machine is like, it's like driving a car. Put your hand in the way of that needle and you about to get real hurt. So from 8 years old, I could run my mother's machine and I started making my own clothes. I never liked to see myself coming and going. And I didn't want what was on the rack. If there was like 20 of them, one or two, then maybe I might invest my money. But I just didn't like to look like everybody else. And um, I don't I don't feel I was conceited. It's just been inbred in me to be one of a kind, to be original, to want to be authentically me and not settle for what everybody has to have or can afford. Let me put it that way. So I went to FIT. I actually went to fashion. I went to the high school. I did not I wanted to go to Rhode Island and learn how to design fabrics, but I didn't apply in time, so I ended up at FIT. And after FIT, I lived in Paris for 3 years,
Nice.
where I actually put my trade to work. I learned how to work. Um, I studied tailoring along
Mhm.
with fashion design. And while I was still in New York, I worked for a small European designer where I did everything: cut, sew, shop for leather, help her set. I did everything. I was a gal Friday. And when that um, became not lucrative, I started doing a line of my own tie-dyed garments. You know, what tie-dye is popular again, but I started doing it back in the 80s. And I had a rep, and she was selling my clothing in her, what do you call that? A sales room, her showroom. but I felt like I was a slave to the business. I took that money and went to Europe. And then I started working after some different, I went to Europe with a ski group. So I skied in the Italian Alps and then decided, oh, I love Italy. I want to stay in Italy. But Italy was too cliquish for me. And after traveling and living in some different European countries, I lived in Denmark, I lived in Germany, I lived in Italy for a while. I was actually in Berlin when the wall was still up, like in
Wow.
86, 87. And then I went back through I went back to Italy, ended up in Paris. Paris was the most like New York. And I just want to say I was in the right place at the right time with the right people. And I started working there. I also,
Well, first of all, let's pause for a minute because you glossing
yeah,
over a lot of great nuggets,
yeah.
right?
Oh, okay, okay,
So
okay.
you're starting off and you're saying, okay, so I was working here and I felt like it wasn't enough, right? Because
Yeah,
you had so much more talent. You wanted to do so much more with everything that you've given. First of all, let's even back up before that. You had a mom that was your example. She was your
yeah,
rock. She was
yeah.
your first creative. She made you
Idolized my
understand
mother.
that everything that you needed that you already had inside of you. And the reason I want you to pause is because there are listeners that are listening to us throughout the world, right? So this
Okay,
show is being shown in a continent, it's being shown in the Caribbean, it's being shown all over. And I want small businesses that are you, right, that are thinking about, well, what next, that they can understand your story in a very real way so that they can understand that they too can be Sherry Hobson in their field and industry. And it doesn't even have to be in fashion, but whatever they put their minds and their hearts to, then they can do it, right? So you talked about your mom. So you had that strong upbringing from the beginning. Like she was the rock. She helped you to understand the things that you needed to do, and she showed up, and that allowed you to show up. So when you
exactly.
went to what you wanted to go, and I didn't even know you could design fabrics, but good to know. You wanted to go out to Rhode Island and design fabrics, and you ended up in FIT. People are scammering to get into FIT. You're like, and FIT was the second,
And
was
and
my
and I
second
was
choice.
I was a part of the first 4-year program at FIT.
Right.
So I did 2 years and then I did another 2 years so that I could have my bachelor's so I could teach. The funny thing is I had an opportunity to do some teaching a couple of years ago. I didn't love it so much, but maybe I was just in the wrong environment. I was in a junior high school and it was more about their behavior than them really learning.
Experiencing
Yeah,
what you were
and
there to show up and teach them. And I
yeah,
was
you
so
know,
I teach in schools, and one thing I can say, and we're going to side note and go back to that because I'm all about the young people having a skill, right?
right,
And so I teach in schools. I have a cheerleader instructor in some schools. I have a violinist in some schools. I have step dancers, martial arts in schools here in Queens and Brooklyn and the Bronx. And so, and in all different age levels. And so there's before school, during school, and then after school programs and Saturday programs. And what I learned is it's the leaders that's in place. I am blessed to be in some schools with some really strong principals and administrators. And so if the student really want to get what they're asking for, then we're going to make sure that they get it and we show up and we go above and beyond. If you're saying to me that in this program they weren't particularly, it was more about the behavior than about the program, I believe you should definitely consider going back now, and
hmm
going back into a school with that strong environment. I'm always looking at schools that already have that in their DNA, right? So if there's a creative school or artistic school or school around, home economics and sewing and whatever training, I think that's the place that you should be because you have so much knowledge, so many skills and abilities. Like you've traveled and worked, not just traveled, but you traveled to Italy, you traveled, to Paris, and you've been in these places, and you were in the first program at FIT, first 2 years. Then you went back and did 2 more years. And so you have not just the academic knowledge, but you have the real life world experience that you can impart in these young people. The one thing that I am going to say, I have a wellness foundation, and I take young people from fifth grade, and the goal is to get them in fifth grade and then take them throughout high school and then college, and pay for it all, and equestrian lessons, and make sure they have etiquette training, and make sure they have home economic skills and all of these things, and then help them get their first job out of college.
Wow.
Because when you
And what
reach at a
program is
young
that?
age, this is my wellness foundation, Coaxum Connects
Okay.
Wellness Foundation. The thing
Okay.
that I realize is that when you reach them at that critical age in their life where they're not quite grown yet, or believe they're grown yet, and they're not quite kids yet, but they're in that middle, that intersection, that's where you can really hold on to them and give them all of these knowledge, skills, and ability to get them to the next level. We were able to do that when I worked in the district attorney's office with a program called Legal Lives. I realized that the fifth graders weren't quite adults yet, but even though some of them felt like they were much older,
I
and
know.
but they were also very much young and hungry, and everything that we gave them, they held on to it. And so fifth grade is that age. Is that so? What I'm saying to you is, I don't want you to give up on them yet. I think that.
No, and you know what, Terry? Because I identify with my perfection.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, look, y'all not getting what I got. Like they just were coming in and um maybe out of 12 students, there were two who were really into the lesson. The
Right.
rest of them it was about just about all kind of other stuff. It wasn't about what the lesson was, or they would want you to do the work for them.
Right.
And I wasn't raised like that. I mean,
Right.
if you don't want to do it, that's one thing, but I'm not going to do your work for you. And
So I want to drop that other nugget, because she talked about having a strong upbringing. She talked about being able to walk into your destiny, whatever that was. But more importantly, now she's talking about life lessons again. When you're talking, Sherry, and I say she because I want my listening audience to understand who Sherry Hobson is, right? Who
yeah,
is she? What is she talking about? So when you're talking about, if you want to get ahead in life and be able to accomplish what you've accomplished and more, you have to show up and do the work. You
yeah,
can't expect other people to do the work for you. And I don't want
yeah,
to gloss over that, because right now we're in a generation of instant. Like, you're watching a TikTok and you think she lost 60 pounds instantly. It didn't happen instantly. Or you
no,
you,
you had to
you
do
see
the work.
someone that went on TikTok and now they have this great following. It didn't happen instantly. Nothing happens instantly. And that's what Sherry is saying to the listening audience. If you really want to be successful as a creative, you have to put in the work. You have to show up and do your own work. Your knowledge, skills, and ability is going to be the thing that makes you unique. And she started out by saying, Mommy made sure I was unique and I was one of a kind, right? So
You
that
know,
makes you that
mhm,
makes you unique. That makes you one of a kind. And so I don't want to gloss over that, because that's an important lesson. And one of the things that we talk about on this show, and I usually start out with barriers, but it was just so much, like you're doing so many beautiful things. I just wanted to jump in and kind of get my listening audience to understand who Sherry Hobson is, right? But I do want to go back to barriers, right? What were some of the barriers to access to all of the things that you're doing? Like, what were some of the barriers? Because I personally know that creative space was male dominated at some point. It wasn't
oh
a lot
yeah,
of women
and
that are
and
doing what you're doing. So
very
what were some of the
quickish.
barriers to access to get you to be able to, one, you had the unmitigated tenacity to go live in Paris for 3 years,
Yep,
and you went on a ski trip and stayed, and I mean, come on,
yep,
talk to me. Come on, there's some
yep.
things that you did that
So
are not
when I
traditional.
when I had my own, so back in, oh God, I guess it was like, so I left in 85. So 83, 84, I was doing this line of tie-dye garments, and I was selling on the streets in Soho. I had a representative who was selling my line, but she was like, borrow money from your family, do whatever you have to do more. Um, and I was feeling like, I don't want to be asking my family for money. And the money I made from what she was selling, I just took that money and went to Europe. Now, Europe was so much fun in Italy, and I decided, oh, I want to live in Italy. But when I was actually in Italy, Italy was very cliquish. I didn't have my papers. So I would go to companies that I felt like I liked, and they would say, well, we can't really hire you because you don't have your papers. But on the other hand, you can't get your papers unless somebody
Hire
hires
you.
you. So usually people who go and work in Europe, they've been given papers from some connection here in America before they go to Europe. But I went on my own and was just knocking on doors and showing my sketches, and people would see me, but it was just that same thing. Well, you don't have your papers, so we can't give you a job. I couldn't get my papers because I didn't have a job. So when I went to Paris, that was like, okay, this is the this is the last hurrah. It just so happened that my mother had a friend who had a nephew. My cousin had another cousin. You know, you can have a cousin and your cousins from different sides of the family. Her cousin was working and living as a model in Paris. So I had some connections.
Right.
And I just want to say, honestly, I was in the right place at the right time, but I still had to travel out of Paris and get my passport, keep my passport stamped, that I wasn't just staying in Paris. Um,
But I
I
want to
worked.
pause here because you just said
Mhm.
something else. You dropping nuggets and you keep network. Your
Yes,
network is your net worth,
that's true.
right? So what you said to me is when you were in Italy, you didn't have the network in Italy to be able to move the things around the way that you needed to move them around to be as successful as you could be in Italy. But when you
Right.
went to Paris, you dug into your network. Your mom had a network and your cousin had a network and they were able to become your network and that was
Exactly.
your net worth. You were able to make those connections. And the reason that I need to go back to that because as you know, my business is Coaxum Connects, connecting you because
Connect.
relationships
That's
matter,
right.
right?
They
And
do.
these relationships, no matter where they're coming from in your network, they're so important. I know I have my students when I'm teaching a networking class read a book called by Harvey McKay called Dig the Well Before You're Thirsty. And so,
Okay.
what it really says is that you need to be nurturing your network along the way so that you don't have to get thirsty in order to go back to the well. Because usually, if you have to make a 3 a.m. call to someone you haven't spoken to in 5 years, you're not going to really get what you need from them. They may give something because they remember your character and your integrity, but they're not going to be that they're not going to give you exactly what you need from them because you have to build up that network which is your net worth again. So I'm saying it's really important for us to nurture relationships in our lives and understand that because Sherry is a living example that networks work. And it really will bridge that gap for you.
But you also, once you make a connection, then you got to be like, you don't burn bridges.
Right.
Then you got
Nurture.
to
You got to
show
nurture
up.
the connection.
You got to show up and do your best.
That's right.
You got to show up and be authentically um a good person,
That's right.
honest. You don't take people for granted.
That's
You
right.
don't step on anyone's toes. You show up, basically you show up and you show out.
Right.
And the connection that my mother had was the nephew of a friend, but he was in that circle. At the time that I was in Paris, Patrick Kelly was hot, and a lot of the how do I say this? A lot of the guys that were guy friendly
Mm-hmm.
were, they shared the jobs amongst each other.
Yeah.
And it was really, okay, there's a job over here at Paco Rabanne, and Yves Saint Laurent is looking for somebody, and Givenchy is looking for somebody, and really you were only as good as the collection.
That's right.
So the fashion industry has seasons, and
That's right.
so if what you did made it through that season and was successful for them, they would invite you back.
That's
And
right.
then you would sketch another collection. What I did was I would design a collection. I would design. We did outerwear and we did coats. We did suits. So
Mhm.
suits that would have trims in leather, um,
Nice.
coats that would have fur trim, and I would work with the it's called an atelier, but I would work with his seamstresses and the pattern maker to get the models right, to get the bodies right, to
Wow.
um, create the garments. And see, that knowledge of my mother being a home economics teacher, um, she was perfection. I mean, she was very skilled.
So you don't
No,
have to wonder where you got it from.
yeah, she was very skilled. And so, you know, very young, I knew how to match up a plaid. I knew how to line a garment. When we went to when I went to a store and shop, I couldn't buy crap because my mother didn't. She didn't make inexpensive stuff. She used the best fabrics. Oh my goodness. She oh yikes.
Yep, you're back. We lost you for a
I'm
minute.
back.
So we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with Sherry. So we're going to take a quick commercial break and we will be right back. We're talking to Sherry Hobson of Bellini Enterprises. She designs headpieces and accessories, and she's also Legacy Bellini. So we are going to take a quick commercial break and be right back to talk some more with Sherry Hobbs about her best practices. We talked about her berries. We're going to talk some more about her best practices and big ideas. Take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Thank you.
I used to watch BET, MTV, VH1, now I watch Tempo. Soca, Calypso, Reggae Dancehall. Don't stall, better get tuned in to the tempo. Don't have cable, they got an app. Go to your app store, download that. Whether it's tourism, cuisine, or the social scenes, if it ain't Tempo, it's a rap. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo.
Time. It has a different meaning in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It goes backwards, forwards, it stops. St. Croix is rooted in history. So much of it still remains untouched.
I remember running on these streets as a kid. This shop was right down there. It opened the same year I was born. This is where the original Crucian hook was born. It's the symbol of these islands. And I wanted to have my hands in that very same history. I want to be able to pass it down to my family while still putting a new spin on it.
the U.S. Virgin Islands. We have an amazing culture that developed over time from all over the world.
St. John feels so untouched. Being underwater is like another world. There's no worries, there's no stress. I can just escape. This is my happy place. My passion for scuba diving came at just being fascinated with the water and wanting to be a mermaid. And this is the closest thing I can get to achieving mermaid status. Canadians just love being outdoorsy. We live for adventure, so we love anything hiking, being on the water, diving, snorkeling, and St. John has it all.
It's like some spirit is protecting the island and keeping them raw. The Makujumbi watches over the island. From up there, they keep the evil spirits away. The nightlife in St. Thomas is absolutely amazing. There's always something going on. Everyone comes together to dance and catch a vibe. We're always celebrating. We celebrate freedom, culture, the food, the smell, the music. It's always a celebration. The people here are probably the most priceless thing because they keep the culture going. There's so many different influences on these islands. Food from all kind of countries coming together in new dishes. All of us came from somewhere, but all that we call this home. The VI is a new melting pot. This is where the past and the future comes together.
Welcome back to the Coaxum Report. This is Terry Coaxum, and we had a little difficulties technology wise, but we're back and we're ready to rock and roll all over again. So, for those of you that are just tuning in, we are on with Sherry Hobson, and Sherry's been talking to us about her business and all the wonderful work that she's done. And I just want to recap a little bit because Sherry covered a lot of ground when we were talking before she started talking about her mom and all the wonderful opportunities that her mother was able to afford her through her work ethic, through her creativity. And Sherry told us that she was actually operating a sewing machine at 8 years old. So she was able to do the work at 8 years old. And then she went on to talk about some of the jobs and experiences that she had. And she talked about her educational background and her graduation from FIT. And then she started talking about a lot of the travel. She wasn't really satisfied with what she was doing here. And so she decided to go to Italy and to go to Paris and to live there. Then she started talking to us about a lot of experiences and how she was able to overcome a lot of the hurdles, and her network became her net wealth. And so I want to get back into talking a little bit more to Sherry about all the things, all the wonderful things that she continues to do in this space, especially as a creative. We even talked about some of the barriers, because we all know that the fashion industry, the creative space that Sherry is playing in right now, is a male dominated field. And so Sherry was talking about some of the things that she's able to get accomplished. For all of you that are listening, and you can find us on Amazon TV, on Android TV, on Apple TV, on Roku, and of course you can download the app at ourtv.network. I encourage you to listen back to all the wonderful things that Sherry is able to do, because she's giving you a lot of great nuggets. So I got my pen out again. I'm ready to take some more notes.
You take copious notes for sure.
To make sure that we are actually traveling along this journey with Sherry from the true beginnings until where she is right now. And I'm super excited to be a part of this journey. So talk to us a little more. Sherry, we talked about some of the barriers. I want to talk a little bit now about some of the best practices. Like, what are some of the amazing things that you're able to do in your space to be able to, one, get your stuff out there and worn by beautiful people like our commissioner of arts and culture here in New York. And that was a super amazing piece that you did for her. And that's the thing. Sherry will do your individual pieces. She's going to tell you where you can find her at. I hope she'll show you some of the amazing work. I know the earrings are courtesy of her. So, and those are beautiful.
Thank you.
And you're unique and one of a kind. So if you are going someplace and you want to really stand out, I encourage you to really go onto Sherry's website and to download and get some fresh gear from this. So talk to us a little bit more about some of the best practices, because we talked about the barriers, we talked about the beginnings. What are some best practices and some big ideas that you have around, especially creatives in your industry?
I would say be open to hone in on your skills, but also be open to some new skills. So remember, I was trying to work in Italy and I ended up working in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
French. I studied French in school
Mm-hmm.
from the first grade. And so by
Oh,
staying in
wow.
Paris, I was able to finally utilize the French I had learned.
Right.
And in Paris, the French just have to hear you make an attempt to use a few French words, and then they will make an attempt to speak in English. But if you don't speak any French words, they're not going to speak in any English words. And I find that now we have a lot of Spanish speaking people living in America, and they come up to you and they just speak Spanish. And I'm like, no sabe. Like I didn't take Spanish in school. So I think if you have an opportunity to learn a language, I would do it.
So immersing. What I hear you say is you immersed in the language. Like, so
Yes.
you when
I
you
had to.
were
You couldn't even buy toilet paper. As a woman, I couldn't buy any personal um pads or any kind of if I couldn't say it in French. I
wow.
couldn't say it in French. They'd be like, you know, like
But
get out of
now
here. Where you going? And that was
wow.
30 years ago. So, and that I don't really think that energy has changed. I had a lady last week come up to me and she was just speaking Spanish and I just had to keep saying no comprende because she was determined to speak Spanish and I couldn't understand anything she was saying to me. You
So the
know,
one good thing about now than 30 years ago is we got Google Translate, right? So you can
Absolutely,
literally
that's
put
true.
on, if you
Yeah,
download it, you can say Google Translate and let her speak, and then it can speak into it. So,
but
but you were in
that's the other thing that a lot of people don't remember with these smartphones. That's why they're called smartphones. They
a.
can be an assistant. My son will call me and ask me something. I say, ask your phone. Do the research on your phone. You know, when we were coming up, we had to go to the library
That's
or
right.
go to our encyclopedias
That's right.
and look it up and do the research. Now you can ask AI, you can do chat GPT, you can Google it, you can go on YouTube University. So you got a lot of advantages. When I decided to stay in Paris, I went to a French school in Paris called Alliance Francaise so that I could further strengthen my French, so that I could, I mean, it was twofold. I wanted to strengthen my knowledge of the language, but I also wanted to have a legitimate reason to be in France. Because remember, I was an alien, so I really wasn't supposed to be working. I worked as a au pair, so I
Mhm.
did some babysitting. I shared an apartment with someone who needed a roommate, another American that was living in Paris, and she was a jazz singer. So that opened up a whole
Yeah.
nother um,
Network for you.
network for me. And actually, my sister was a dancer, and there was someone who went to her school, performing arts, who also lived in Paris, who I connected with, and she's the one that introduced me to the jazz singer that I ended up living with.
Oh,
Then I
wow.
ended up meeting through her Dee Dee Bridgewater, another jazz singer.
Wow.
And when Dee Dee went to London to do Lady Day, I took care of her house and her children. I still
Wow.
went to work, you know, so it was like, um, you know, family ties, ties that bind. We were all taking care of each other. And
And as we should though, but that's
yeah,
the way. That's how that is our just due for just being here, right?
yeah,
To be able to take care of each other. And if we can wake up every single day with the intent on helping others, we're gonna get blessed tenfold. So that was
tenfold,
beautiful. That's
tenfold. So,
beautiful.
so let's go forward to the Met Gala. My cousin worked um, for Borough Hall. She was um, part of the infrastructure. Anyway, she was one of Eric Adams' like main people and ran Borough Hall. She allowed um, Rick Davey, who is the head of Brooklyn Fashion Week, to have an event at Borough Hall. I don't know who knows, but when Eric Adams was in Borough Hall, he let everybody, the Chinese, the
All
Russians,
nationalities and ethnicities were
everybody got to
welcome,
use
as they should be.
exactly. It
As
was
they should be.
no segregation. Everybody got to use Borough Hall.
Right.
So Rick Davies invited my cousin to Brooklyn Fashion Week, but she was in Florida. So she said, "Oh, invite my cousin Sherry. She's a designer. She would love to come to Brooklyn Fashion Week. Here's her information. Here's her website." He went on my website. He saw this headpiece,
Mhm. Oh,
and
that's nice.
he wanted me to create that for Lori Cumbo, our Commissioner of Cultural Affairs. Now, it started off as a headpiece, and but based on who he told me he was using to make the outfit, and what the outfit was going to look like, and then I've been, you know, the Met Gala is like the playoffs for the fashion world, so I
Right.
knew I had to come strong. It couldn't be some little hair clip. It needed to be something big and
That stood
fabulous.
out. Right.
So I was and then it was the theme was Sleeping Beauty. So I knew, well, I just knew So the other part I want to say is that I stay true to my style. All my pieces are done with vines and branches. Oh, I don't know where the camera is.
Right there.
Vines, yeah, vines and branches and carry shells. So I stayed true to my aesthetic, but I just made it grander.
That's right.
And
That's right.
when we finally had a fitting where the commissioner was present,
Right.
um, when we tried it on her head, she wasn't comfortable with that. And I quickly said, well, let's try it on your neck.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the nature of my pieces, they can be worn. I make them on memory wires.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're flexible. And it could be worn on her head or her neck. And
Right.
and we put it on her neck and it just
It stood
finished
out. That's
it
right.
and it finished the garment. And
That's
um that's another part of
that's
the
right.
fashion world that really rings true to me. I've been in rooms putting together different shows. I used to work for Audrey Smalls and the ground crew, and it's about making the client, making the model look fabulous, and then also creating for brides. You work with a client to achieve um,
Their
what their
vision.
best vision is
Yeah.
for
What their best
themselves,
vision is.
and how they're gonna best feel beautiful.
So I want
And
to pause for a minute because you're going over again. You always touch all of these nuggets, but you keep going. And I want to pause because what you're saying is that when you have a client, one of your best practices to understand the client needs, right?
that's
And I
right.
know that that sounds like it should be understood, but what's understood don't have to be explained. It's not necessarily
Uh,
understood.
it's
And so
true.
I want to go back to that because it's important, especially you're designing most of your headpieces for brides, for women that want to make sure that their big day is a big splash, that they want to feel beautiful, and they want to really feel like this is their day, and you are able to create these amazing pieces that make them feel like the queen of the ball. And
And
so it's
and
really exciting. It's
and
exciting
they
because
are the queen, because
exactly,
all
exactly,
eyes, all
on the
eyes are
queen.
on them.
That's
All
right.
eyes are on them.
That's
You
right.
know,
And as it should be. So this is really amazing. But I want to make sure that those that are listening into us understand that this is a process. You're not just designing a headpiece or some accessories, you're taking your client into consideration on this entire journey until you get them to the vision that they realize. And so that's really important. And I want to pause there because that's a best practice. Whether you realize it or not, that's something that doesn't happen. People are going to get things off the shelf and making it work for whatever their event or whatever the thing is they're doing. When they're coming to you, they're coming for an experience. And so you take that
that part.
journey with them and
Yeah.
you're able to create an experience that they may not even understood in the beginning of it. They just had a vision in their mind, and you take that and you turn that into an experience that they'll never forget. It's an
And it's not
unforgettable.
about me. It's
But that's the
it's
point.
really about them.
And
And
that's the point.
when I work with a client, I create relationship with them too. To understand, do you like that? Does it
That's
feel
right.
okay? Um, would you like more of this or less of this?
Right.
Because especially when it's a bride, I also talk to them about their relationship, not prying, but
But to better understand,
them,
right.
enjoy this process, enjoy this journey, because it's not
So we're having a little bit of difficulties. I'm sure we're going to get right back. But Sherry is really sharing a lot of great nuggets with us about working with individuals and realizing their dreams and their visions. And she's able to do that through her creativity. And so I want to commend Sherry for being able to take, the vines and things that she's working with and turn them into this masterpiece that really makes her clients feel like every single piece that she designs is just for them. And I think that that kind of feeling is really a best practice. And so I want to thank you so much, Sherry, for sharing that experience with us. And you were telling us a little more about how that goes into how you keep that in mind when you're moving them through this process.
Yeah, because I want them to enjoy the journey.
That's
You
right.
know, brides often get caught up in the details, and the details are important, and some of the details are very specific. But I take moments to say, are you journaling? Is
Right.
this a good day? When you think back on this fitting, is it going to make you happy? Are you going to feel good about it? Are you thinking about your guy? Are you thinking about what elements of this process you can continue in your
That's right.
marriage? Because it's a marriage, it's a relationship, it's a lifestyle, if
That's
you
right.
will. You're creating an environment that you want to thrive in. So
That's
if
right.
everything's, oh, I don't know, and all helter skelter, that's what you're creating for your
That's right.
marriage.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Absolutely.
know when to say this is enough, know when to say, let me call my boo and just talk to him. Still have quality moments with each other while you're planning this and you're going through it. Because when you look back, these are the memories of your life,
That's right. That's right.
you
And I
know?
think it's really important, and that is a best practice. So I want you. I know it's silly how time flies when we're having fun, but the show is almost over. But
Okay.
I gotta get to big ideas. I gotta get to what's next. I gotta get to what would you tell the younger Sherry Hobson about this experience, and would you do anything differently?
What would I do differently? I would, what I just said. When I started creating headpieces, it was because I couldn't find what I wanted when I got
Hmm.
married. What I
Hmm.
didn't share is that I met my husband in Paris. He wasn't French, he was from America, and we both had decided to come back to America. If I had anything to do differently, I would have focused more on my marriage and um I don't want to say less on the wedding because we had an amazing wedding, but I would have
But more on the
remembered,
journey. The
yeah,
journey.
I
Yeah.
would have remembered some of the words we said in our invitation, in our coming together. I would have really tapped into his love language, and I would have had him tap into my love language. I think it's real important, even in relationships, even with your best friend or your best bud. If you know their love language, speak their language when you can, because that way you're both having a better
Experience. Yeah.
experience. What's next for me? So I call my bridal collection Legacy Bolani because Bolani is named for my children. My son is Bo, my daughter is Lonnie, and I want to continue to create a business that can live on beyond me. And
Nice.
so I would like to um, zone in on what aspects of this business can they continue.
That's right.
um, I choose to call my business Bolani Enterprises because I also have real estate. um, I also have a love for outerwear. As I said, I was designing outerwear in Paris. When I came back to New York, I got a job on 7th Avenue right away, and I was doing outerwear on 7th Avenue. Part of me would like to do some outerwear again, and I want to become WMBE certified, Terry Coaxum. And I
I
know
got
that's
you.
in your wheelbarrow. So that's
That's my
why when your
wheelhouse.
name popped up on my phone, I said, look at God. Because trust me, I wanted to design a piece for the Met Gala.
And
And
look
it
at
was
you.
it was in my journal. I was saying it every day. I want to elevate my business. I want to design a piece for the Met Gala. And look,
That's
I
right.
got a call on April 7th that said, guess what? Rick
You're gonna
Davy wants you to design a headpiece for Lori Combo. You're designing a piece for the
go to
Met
Met
Gala.
Gala.
You
That's
know,
it.
you have not because you
You
asked
ask
not.
not. That's right.
So, what I'm asking for is to be certified. I'd like to get back into my outerwear. And I know that you have to be um, WMBE certified in order to sell in the airports. And I would like to have
So DBE, DB
a
Disadvantaged
Bolani. I would
Enterprise.
like to have a legacy Bolani
Oh,
kiosk. I would like to
all
have
right.
something that, those couples that been together for years and years but haven't gotten married, they walk through the airport and say, let's get that. That'll be perfect for our wedding. And they just scoop it up and get on the plane and go somewhere beautiful and exotic and seal the
I
deal.
absolutely love it. And you know what I love about it is your facial expressions and your gestures are speaking to the experience because it's like you're visualizing it, like you're
It's a
there. You're
fantasy.
standing at your kiosk at JFK or LaGuardia or even in Newark Airport, and you're watching this couple, being in awe about this beautiful headpiece, and they're grabbing it up and saying, all right, so this goes with this, and we're going to have this amazing experience on our journey, not just for the rest of our lives, but for the best of our lives.
That's right. That part. That part.
So I absolutely,
That
absolutely
part.
love it. I just want to thank you so much, Sherry, for
Thank you.
coming on, being a part of the Coaxum Report. I love this because we get to share around the world with individuals that are looking to walk into their passion, into their destiny. And I love to have individuals like you come on with the real, right? Talk about, yeah, there was some barriers, but there's also these best practices and big ideas. And you may not see it as a big idea or a best practice when you say, I individualize your piece based on based on you, based on how you're showing up, based on what you want to see, based on your vision and your piece. I take this journey with you down that line and make it what you need it to be. So you are the belle of your ball all the time when you put on this piece. And so I want you to experience that. And that's why I wanted to make sure I got you on the show,
Thank
fresh
you.
off your Met Gala
Yes. Oh
debut.
my God. It's like, yeah, it's really uh how do I say this? It's an out of body experience, but it's a very welcoming um um oh I'm not I'm like I just feel so grateful,
Full. You feel
so
you look like you're
illuminated.
full. You look
Yeah,
like you're
I'm just
full.
so illuminated. Truth, transparency, there's something going on with my domain, and when you're in a business and you're doing everything yourself, sometimes something can um slip through the cracks, but my Instagram is alive and well. So that's legacy underscore Bolani, Beauloni.
Mhm.
And you can DM me and I will absolutely do my best to honor your request.
Well, I thank you so much for being a part of the Coaxum Report. I wish you much success. I look
Thank
forward
you.
to assisting you at being at that kiosk in the airports so that these young people and even older folks that want to get married can experience what it is to have on a Bolani piece to take
Absolutely.
them on this journey throughout the
Yeah.
journey. And again, it's not about the rest of their life, it's about their best life now. And so I want to thank you so much for being a part of the Coaxum Report. And I encourage you to listen in again. And I look forward to all of your great success. And I thank you for being my sister from another mister.
Thank you.
And
Thank
let's
you.
go do
God
some
bless
big
you.
things together. Take
Yes.
care and be blessed. Thanks for
All
being
right.
on the
You
Coaxum
too.
Report. Take care.